Kevin Clark, you're
Hi.
making your debut.
I'm so happy to be here.
Katie Nolan is like a veteran at this.
I feel whatever
At
about
share
it.
and tell. She just mostly feels whatever.
Sure.
It's getting hard to find things to share and tell. I haven't had this many things to tell in a long time.
Well, I think we should start with Katie.
Why?
Yes, because Kevin Clark is, you have a new job. Mm-hmm. You work for ESPN and Omaha Productions.
I do. I host a show called This Is Football.
Already
You can come
promoting.
on
I
it.
didn't ask you to promote it just yet.
Well,
What's
I
it
don't-
on? Where do I find it?
You can find it wherever you get your podcasts
Okay.
or the ESPN NFL YouTube page and other ESPN social platforms.
Okay.
Kevin is a football expert. And Katie Nolan just had one hell of a football weekend, I would say.
70 points. 70 points?
What
For
was
a
that?
team I don't like. For a team that's it. So, you know
But
this.
do you have
I'm
to
sure you
start
know
liking them?
no.
Okay.
So actually.
Explain for the people who have not
Right.
seen all three
Everybody's
appearances.
got to know, and I'm sick of saying his name on podcasts. I have a fiance. His name's Dan. He was middle school best friends with Mike McDaniel, now the head coach of the Miami Dolphins. So from if you step back from that, if you're sick of hearing the story, the sweet thing about it is like these are two kids who were friends in middle school, and then now are both doing the thing they would have always wanted to do
Yes.
at the top of it, and it's very, very, very cool. However, when Mike McDaniel was going to go somewhere to be a head coach, I said specifically, as long as it's not in the AFC East.
Yeah. He
And
didn't
then
listen.
he didn't, which is fine. But now I am going to I'm going to more Dolphins games than Pats games by a lot. And it's fun. It's football, so it's fun. But it's also at the same time, you're just like, man, this isn't my team. And my team's not really doing anything similar. I mean, they won this week.
In fact, your team through not just the first 3 games of the season, but the first 4 games of not just the first 3 games of the season, but when you combine it with the last preseason game, they have not yet scored as many points as the Dolphins scored
Oh, you did the
against
math.
the Broncos.
Oh, you did the math.
at the game that you were a VIP
very
at.
nice. It's very nice of you to do that math. Thank you.
Yeah.
The game that I was watching while also watching the Patriots on Red Zone because I'm like, they're going to win. So this isn't really a close game. So the night before, we were at the McDaniels Space House. I always say their house looks like a spaceship. It's so nice and modern
Wait,
and fancy.
please.
It's a space house. I don't want to talk too much about. I don't know them like that. Like Dan can do that, and then they can be like, "Hey, I don't want to reveal too much."
Okay,
but it's
so
just
I'm envisioning,
rich people.
I'm
have,
envisioning
like,
like Apollo 11.
yeah, it's like everything's a built-in, you know?
Oh,
So like you don't ever
yeah.
see any of their stuff and then they push the wall and it opens and you're like, "Oh, it's a deep closet." I would never have suspected.
Did they buy it from somebody or did they design the space house?
I think they may have. They're in the process of redesigning it, but weirdly I thought they had designed it, but I guess not. They must have bought
That's
it.
a coach
and now they're
always tinkering. Always
yeah,
tinkering.
That's so true.
The next innovation.
But it looks like a house that the most futuristic
Yes, it's
innovator in the
very-
NFL
It's all
would
clean
live in.
lines.
a Black Mirror house where, like, for some
Yeah, if
reason
you wanna
everybody
be
in Black
really
Mirror.
dark about it, yes.
Well, no, they all have like these glass houses that cost $11 million, and it's always like, oh, I'm an
stones.
insurance adjuster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
That's
live
all
in
my
this-
Instagram likes is just these houses, incidentally.
So we were there that night, the night before, watching. It wasn't the night before. It was Thursday.
Okay.
So it's like we were watching Thursday night football, you know, as you do on Saturday. We went over on Thursday when we got there.
Sure.
And Katie, Bunny, Mike McDaniel's wife, came out and said, "What?
I'm just acknowledging the first name basis.
Yeah.
Her
Bunny.
name's Katie. It's Katie." Yeah, well, I don't know where Bunny
Bunny.
comes from.
Okay.
They call her Bunny so that we don't get confused. But she had the name Bunny first. That's why I call her.
You alpha'd
I
Mike
can't tell-
McDaniel's
no,
wife
no, no, no,
upon
no, no, no.
arrival
I
at
would
the
like to be
Space
very clear.
House.
That's not what happened. What I meant was, it's easier when Dan calls her Bunny because then he doesn't always say Katie and people think he's talking about me. And so now I call her Bunny. And then as I said Bunny, I was like, am I supposed to tell people her name's Bunny? I can't explain why her name's Bunny. Can I move on from this? I'm so nervous to be talking about this
Absolutely.
lovely family.
Absolutely.
But Katie came out and said, "Do you need any Dolphins stuff for the game on Sunday?" And I immediately, my shoulders went up and like I looked at Dan because you know when remove the Mike McDaniel of it all. You know when you're like with your people that you want to impress, like you want to seem like a good, partner to that person and whatever. And so I just immediately was like, does he need me to say yes to this? And so I like looked at him with a look that was like, I don't want to. Do I have to? And I just went, and he didn't give me anything.
Yeah.
He was just looking at me like,
Right,
what's
Soder was just...
Dan just looks at me like, what's she going to do in this situation? And I was like, help. So then I just went, do I have to?
Oh.
And she said, no. And I was
No.
like, okay, cool, then absolutely not. And she said, it's a whiteout, so we wore white.
You're watching the Dolphins score 70 points against the team that your Dan and Mike McDaniel grew up in the same city as. McDaniel was a ball boy. Everybody knows the story by now. The TV version of this was very funny to me. I assume to Kevin as well. At some point, you just start laughing.
Yes.
But you're there in person watching it. Like, what are you and Dan doing as this is unending?
Drinking?
No, we don't
No.
do that.
Okay.
You're super stoned.
Allegedly.
In the state of Florida, allegedly.
Right. Illegal.
I know. It's shocking. The most shocking thing every time.
Sports gambling and weed.
What are we doing? Anyway.
Everything is legal down there.
I know.
Scamming is legal.
That's right.
Just
There's
don't
statutes.
smoke weed.
Statutes legalizing Ponzi schemes, but don't smoke weed.
So we were, what we were doing was laughing at Dan's friend, Chad, who had come from Denver, because as you said, Dan grew up in Denver, so the Broncos are the team that a young Mike McDaniel and a young Dan Soder were watching that was in their hometown. But Mike McDaniel's now a head coach, so you're not assuming he's a Broncos fan. That doesn't matter. And Dan was always a 49ers fan, so he's not a Broncos fan,
Right.
so this didn't hurt that way. But their third friend, Chad, who also came to the game with his lovely wife, Jenna, Chad is a Broncos fan.
Oh,
Chad has
Chad.
always been a Broncos fan. So Chad was watching.
Chad
it would
in
be like
hell.
watching Dan watch the Dolphins like do this to the 49ers. It would just be a different level of, and so Chad was having a tough time watching it unfold in the suite of the head coach of the team that was absolutely embarrassing.
Was Chad wearing
his team.
pity Dolphins gear?
No, Chad wore, I believe, all white because it was a white. We all got away with it because it was a whiteout, so you didn't have to like show any sort of allegiance.
But this is my question for Kevin. Are we all just Chad now? Like, are we all just watching our teams get
Yeah.
destroyed by the greatest offense in the history of football? Seriously.
So I don't know how you stop it. The motion rates are insane. It's a very... Mike McDaniel runs what a souped-up 5-year-old would run, which is like fast guy. If you asked a 5-year-old who's watched like 10 games, like what should we do with football? He'd be like, let's get a bunch of fast guys and let's do a lot of confusing before the snap, and then we'll just go from there. And that's really pretty much the basis of it, the bedstone and the bedrock. And it's working. And they have the fastest people in football. They just combined them.
Yes.
Jalen Waddle wasn't even playing on Sunday, and it seemed to not matter.
Absolutely wild.
I've never seen anything like this as far as the speed and like
Same.
Barnwell and I were on a show together a couple days ago, and he was like, well, 2018 Chiefs, 2007 Patriots, which Katie remembers, those teams didn't even score 60. And now we're at 70. Now, it takes the institutional rot on the other side of the field.
I was going to say, is it worth noting that the Broncos are a mess?
I can't believe Sean Payton just might not be into this. He just might not be into this. He might just be like,
You think this is a cry for help?
Kind of. Well, he was. Well, also even afterwards, it was so fatalistic. He was like, sometimes you just get your butt whipped in the NFL, but this is not that. And nobody was like,
Then what is this?
Then
what is this?
What is this? Is this you just being like,
What is beyond butt whipping? Yeah.
I don't know. So we're just gonna see this. It's not gonna be like the Patriots, Katie's Patriots. They put up a fight. They had Christian Gonzalez on Tyreek Hill. It seemed to work a little bit. They could have won that game. Some special teams
Earlier this
helped.
season, yes.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago. And so I don't think that they're gonna go like 17-0 or whatever and then just romp to the Super Bowl. I mean, it reminds me actually a little bit of the beginning of the Lamar Jackson MVP year, where guys didn't know what to do. And I remember going to Baltimore that year, and some of the tight ends were telling me that like there were linebackers on the other team that would just look over to their coaches and just be like, "What do I do?" And they're like, "Oh, I know,
Dad?"
yeah, like what do I do?"
These little kids looking up.
Yeah, and so it just, I think a lot of times, especially in the NFL, there's a shock to the system for like 2 months, and then we figured out guys get.
Well, that's the
Guys
question,
guys
right?
get banged up.
You
I
get
mean,
the
like,
tape,
yeah.
Kevin. You slice up the all 22, and you adjust.
A lot of teams, like, by the way, we talked about the 07 Patriots. They did lose, and they almost lost to the Giants in Week 17 of the regular season
they
as
did.
well. And then they lost to the Giants.
That must have been painful.
Why are we doing this?
Because they were also a good offensive team.
Yeah.
The then greatest offense we had ever seen.
By a significant
I'm
degree.
interested to know your answer to a question. Can I ask it of you?
Yeah.
How many good coaches are there in the NFL right now?
There's usually
Seven?
Like, is
like
Belichick
8 or 9.
Seven?
We're still
Like
saying
8 or 9.
Belichick's good.
Yeah, he is.
Okay.
He is.
All right.
He is.
Okay.
But like 8 or 9 typically. And then there's a bunch of guys who are just kind of system dependent. Do they have health? Do they have a good roster that year? And there's 4 or 5 guys who just can't coach. Like I don't think Brandon Staley is capable of anything.
Right, with the Chargers.
Yeah.
The sort of the shines come off of the analytics sort of darling aspect.
Well, he
of
doesn't
them.
even. Well, he got back into analytics on Sunday. He killed analytics last year.
Oh, that's
and now
right.
he's back into analytics.
But speaking of which, like Mike McDaniel, though, atop like the power poll of both coaches in the NFL right now, but also nerds.
Actual nerd.
An all-time nerd.
Not fake nerd.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of this guy's just a football dork. And it's like,
Yeah.
okay, it's just because they study military history and they don't shower for 4 days in a row. And it's like, no, Mike McDaniel is a legitimate, like, he is the first Reddit coach, I think. And I'd say a couple things. I'll put it to you because you know him. I've met him less than
pressed
5
his
times.
cabinets, Katie.
You
You have
said
pressed
the
his
word.
cabinets.
He comes home, he goes, he does this, and we talk for 3 minutes, and he goes to sleep.
You said the word bunny on this podcast.
And I'm
True.
really regretting it. Truly.
It
I'm never
seems
going to
to
be
me
invited back to this
that the
ship.
only 2 things he does is vape and come up with unguardable plays. Is that accurate?
King,
Is there a third
in other
thing?
words.
Is there a third thing Mike McDaniel does?
I don't think so. I don't know.
It seems unsustainable. Does it feel that way to you? Or can we get ahead of where this conversation
why
is
is it
going?
unsustainable?
Because scoring 70
Well,
is
yeah, they're not going
literally
to score
historic.
70 points every single week, but they also aren't going to have
Well,
Sean
but
Payton on
but
the
this
other
is-
side
but-
having an existential crisis.
But I say it's unsustainable because according to the DraftKings Sportsbook, the Bills are 2.5-point favorites this weekend.
So I think it's a mixture of a lot of things. The game is not in Miami, where famously the heat was such on.
It was so hot.
So
It was
last
so
year,
hot.
Last year, God bless him, but last year the Bills lost.
Oh,
to
this was
Miami.
the thing about the sun.
And one of a couple. This is actually like a couple of like prominent Bills bloggers actually said this is when I knew the Bills were eliminated from Super Bowl contention. Is they were like, we should call the National Labor Relations Board because Miami's an unsafe work environment after the game because it was like so hot on the field and Buffalo couldn't adjust to it. And I was like, this is.
To be
You're-
fair,
I've seen enough. I've seen enough.
You're calling the socialist manager on me?
Literally, I saw a couple tweets like that this time last year, and I was like, "This, I've seen enough."
80% humidity though should be illegal.
That
Whoever can-
gets all up in
It's too
in a
much.
person.
I went down there just to, before the game, and I was like, anyone running around in this is out of their mind.
I like it. I grew up down
Disgusting.
Why are we burying the lead on Kevin Clark saying that he likes swamp as his
Yeah,
resting
you're wild.
state?